Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. And a huge thank you to Denver Architecture Foundation and Walker Fine Art Gallery for hosting us today. We appreciate Doors Open Denver and this annual event for exposing and giving us access to so much architecture in our city. So thank you, Meg, and your team. Really appreciate it. And also, Bobby Walker mentioned we've been friends for years, and thank you so much for what you do for the art community here in Denver. And thanks for having us here today. So we are so excited to present our book, Designing Aspen, the Houses of Rowland and Broughton, which showcase 10 houses around the Rocky Mountain West. We think it's especially fitting with this year's Doors Open Denver theme, Architecture and Nature in Harmony, as this subject is also core to our design approach. As Bobby mentioned, I'm Sarah Broughton, and this is John Rowland, and we are husband and wife and business partners and founders of our design firm, Rowland and Broughton Architecture and Urban Design. I'd also like to introduce several of our partners here in the audience today. We have Rahul and Greg and Brandon, and we have Megan, who's joining our team in November. So thanks for being here. So want to start, I'm going to try to do two things at once. At our core is our context of how we grow up. So wanted to briefly give you a little bit of background on us. I am the youngest of three children. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. My parents were very active in our community, which really inspired me for a life of teamwork, leadership, and citizenry. Many things from my upbringing continue to inspire me today. This is a collage of images from my youth. I grew up really close to nature, being in Portland, Oregon, and we were fortunate enough to have a place in the mountains, which you can see on the upper slide of a place called Black Butte Ranch, where I really spent weekends and holidays frolicking in nature. Being from Portland, Oregon is really at a core of who I am. As many of you know who've been to Portland, we have a great urban downtown core with many park blocks, many of which are designed by Ian McCarg, with water features, so awesome urban design, and a forest park, which is the largest forest park in the country. So again, very close to nature. I also grew up in a 1920s English Tudor home, and that is something with its classic proportions and porous floor plans is something that I draw on constantly in the work that we do. I was a competitive sports player growing up. I played tennis and been skiing since I was 2. And I was lucky enough to have parents that really encouraged me in the arts. And so from an early age, I was constantly taking art classes after school, on weekends, at local arts and crafts colleges, and also in my grade school and high school. So I was really appreciative of that foundation. Whoops.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Rowland. I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. My parents were very young. I was born in 1968. My mom was 17 years old when I was born, and my dad was 18. So we grew up together. And spent a lot of time with my grandparents, so my mom and dad could go out and, be youthful. But what I really drew on that lifestyle was my mom and dad were both entrepreneurs, and I'd watched them dedicate their lives to their craft and what they were doing. They were both in business and beauticians. Growing up in Cincinnati was amazing. I had, like I said, I was raised by grandparents who took me all over town. And we spent a lot of time in downtown Cincinnati. And Fountain Square is the bottom right-hand corner, is the heart and soul of Cincinnati. And it's a very beautiful historic city. So on snow days or school off days, my grandpa would always take me to all the museums around town. He was probably the crafty artist person in the family. And then I was born, or primarily raised in that house on Constitution Court, which is like one of the first houses on our street. So all the other houses were still under construction. They were, framed. And I was constantly going through the houses just being completely amazed of construction and rough in before all the finishes were going on. So that was, a very powerful point in my life. And then And then baseball. I was super competitive. I played baseball from that little size all the way up to college. I played with Pete Rose Jr. He lived in my neighborhood, and we were definitely good friends. And then art. I was constantly encouraged to, keep expanding my art. Obviously, I'm like every other kid. I love Legos, but I drew all the time and just constantly passionate about all things art. All right, 1993. University of Colorado Boulder. Sarah and I met in our first design studio class together, and that's where all the magic started. And University of Colorado Boulder has an amazing architecture program, if many of you don't know, but it's environmental design. So it's not only just architecture, but it's all things planning, civic master planning, and so how all those merge together and become one. So that was a big, big influence for us. And then after graduating, Sarah had won a competition and placed her in the Sydney, Australia office of a large master planning company called EDOL. And we were master planning the new Olympic Village for the 2000 Olympics. And so I said, I have to tag along. So I went down there and I actually worked for the competing firm that was also trying to get that commission. Shortly thereafter, we went to New York City, and we had great opportunities to work with the best designers probably everywhere. And the competition was very high, and the demands were very high. And so that was like our graduate school. We just did a 4-year degree at EMVD Boulder, but New York was really a compelling and just like honest how hard to work, and everybody in that whole entire city is just like really dedicated to what they do. And so, but in 2000 we moved to Aspen, Colorado, and that had to do with a lot of, part of our core values was nature. Nature inspires us, not only design, but mind, body, spirit. So we were kind of missing that on the East Coast. So we came to Aspen and really got involved with the community. We served on several boards. Sarah was commissioner of the Historic Preservation Commission. I was on Planning and Zoning and the Aspen Civic Master Planning Commission. In addition, we were just getting involved with all kinds of other organizations, the Aspen Art Museum, ACES, the Aspen Music Fest in school. So those were a handful of things that we were involved in. So 2003, we had the opportunity to start our own firm. And so we started our firm out of our 1-bedroom condo from our kitchen table. And today, we are 50 people with studios both in Aspen and Denver, and we both work out, we own and operate out of historic buildings, both on Main Street and then in lower downtown on Blake Street.
We also, a year after starting in Aspen, we started a Denver firm. We realized that for us to attract best talent and for us to really do meaningful work, it was important to be near Denver with access to the arts, to the institutions here, the design center. So the bottom right images are us at Silver Square Lofts, which is where our first studio was, and wasn't even Rhino at the time. So it was really great to be at the start of the Rhino Arts District.
So throughout our career, we've had an opportunity to work on some of the most iconic properties in Aspen and elsewhere. This is the historic Jerome Hotel and the courtyard in which the Aspen Times, which they eventually acquired, and we redeveloped that project and excavated the basement and then built new housing, residential hotel living behind that. So. And then here we are on Main Street in Aspen, and there's the lower downtown office. And as I said, we're 50 people strong. We're architects and interior designers. And we have a lot of visualization artists on our team. And that's something that we're constantly elevating as design's going on. We just don't wait till the end and let's do a pretty rendering. No, we're doing it from the very beginning.
So we're going to focus today's talk on, like I said, 10 residential projects, but our practice also focuses not only on custom residential, but hospitality, commercial, historic preservation, and special projects. And we really love that mix. As John mentioned, we're architects and interior designers. At the core of what we do, and I think this is really embedded in our education at EMVD, at CU, is a convergent architecture. And what that means is that it is a fully integrated, holistic approach to design, where we're merging together architecture, landscape, interior design, artisans into a holistic way of approaching our design projects. And clients are at the center of that process. It's a very collaborative process, and it's something that continues to evolve as we are iterating and delivering our projects. And in the 10 homes that you'll see today, you'll see that our task was to integrate all art forms, and we'll talk about that as we're showing the work, plus the natural and the man-made. These are examples of how we're looking towards nature in our work to pull in details into our projects. A lot of our work is centered on sustainable practices, and it's not an option in our projects. It is at the core of how we design. And so that is something that we embed into all of our work. The first project is Meadow House, and this is a new build house that is located on the edge of a meadow with very expansive mountain views across the meadow. It is rooted in agrarian architecture. It was a former ranch that has been, over the years, evolved into a neighborhood of homes. So we really were inspired by the agrarian roof forms of the historic buildings on the ranch, and so that evolved into a roof form that then peels up and nods towards the mountain views. Our client has lived in Europe and has Austrian roots. And she lives here with her 3 children. So that was something that was really important to integrate into the architecture and into the finishes in the home. And she also is very interested in living with art. So we were able to introduce art commissions into this project. We collaborated with the Haas brothers to design a custom 2-sided fireplace surround, which you can see here. It's really meaningful for us to be able to bring in other collaborators into a project. One of our favorite aspects of this home is the dining room. She is a huge reader, and so we designed the dining room to be also a library. And this dining room is not one function. It's really a place where they use constantly. It's a table where art's being done, where there's games being played, and of course where there's dining. But it's surrounded by books, which we think is really, really amazing. There's a lot of fun little hidden things, such as a spiral stair that goes from her office up to her bedroom, and then you can see from the inside how that gable form is peeling up and really nodding to the meadow view and the mountains beyond. You can see from the outside, we're really thinking about how that indoor-outdoor connection is working, and the outdoor living. We're so blessed in Colorado to have this amazing weather, and we can really be outside a lot of the days. So we really treat the outdoors just as important as the indoors in our projects, and then really make sure that we are really blending in with nature, and that nature is prevalent in every one of our spaces. And so we love this, and there actually was a herd of elk going across the meadow when we did this photo shoot. John,
Yeah,
you want to
next
talk
we
about
have
Mountain Retreat?
yes, we have the Mountain Retreat, and this is also a new build, of which we did obviously the architecture, we did the interior design, we did the furniture procurement, and also we worked with the owner on her art collection. So 2 big challenges on this project. One is this was the last property left in this private little neighborhood to be sold for good reason, because it was surrounded by 2 streets. It was a steeply sloped property, it was fully wooded. So that was a super big challenge, and we realized why it was the last one to be sold. Number 2 is...
There are no easy lots left.
The number 2 is the HOA required the design to be of the ilk of the national park architecture. So that was the biggest challenge because we, along with the client, want to do something modern and big windows and views captured everywhere and a swimming pool. So we worked diligently on how to nestle this building up against the slope to create flat areas to build this property. And it wasn't easy. We had to do a 40-foot retaining wall that was integrated into the architecture. And regarding the design, we really just harkened back to those principles of the lodges back in the day, the national park lodges, and created multiple places to sit, to gather, to be outside, but also creating places to be secluded within the place and be private and have rejuvenecation kind of experiences on the property.
One thing that's interesting about this project is, as John mentioned, we had this large retaining wall to basically create a buildable lot, which created a situation where our kitchen was up against that retaining wall. So in order to bring light into the kitchen, we did a 14-foot by 16-foot skylight in the kitchen, which you can see here, which really pours in light, and it's really beautiful with this diffuse kind of northern aspect light coming through. So that was a way to, again, bring back nature in a challenged location on the property. Oops. Many of our projects need vertical circulation, not just with stairs, but with elevators. So we're constantly looking at how we integrate that into the architecture and into the flow of the projects. And this is an image of that retaining wall that we terraced and added landscape. Another hallmark of our design is you can see here these corner windows, and it's amazing when you locate windows on a corner, what that does in opening up a room, and again, hearkening back to that indoor-outdoor and that nature.
That's a design principle that ripples out through all of our projects, never having one room with just one wall of windows, because you get glare and fatigue through that, so you always bring it in from two aspects. All right, the Lookout House. The Lookout House actually is quote unquote a remodel, but for all intents and purposes, we only really saved the foundation. And so it's basically a ground up brand new house. The house is nestled into a very shallow ravine that's downward sloping through this beautiful meadow, and then the distance are these gorgeous views of Highlands ski area. So this project really spent a lot of time on organizing the floor plan so that you had these actual relationships looking down at the meadow at all times. And then also on the backside, on the north side, if they weren't looking at the views, they were getting beautiful wash with northern light. So it's a very transparent architecture, and this is a good example. This is on access coming through the front door, and this whole window wall slides into the architecture. So you see the view, you see the plunge pool in the background. We spent a lot of time trying to integrate the two levels of the house. So one level wasn't just private, one level wasn't public. So we have this mismatch of different programs on different levels, so the house doesn't feel like compartmentalized.
These clients have a large multimedia art collection, so that was something that we were constantly thinking about in designing the spaces. And the sculpture you just saw in the stair, we had even mocked up to make sure that it would fit appropriately in the space. So you can see the expansive mountain views, lots of really fun materiality in this house. And I think, you can see kind of probably a theme in our work is there is a consistency to material, and that's on purpose. So that way the eye is really drawn to either the art and also the art of the outdoors. But there is a lot of layering that is going on in that consistency. So it's not one note. And that's something we spend a lot of time thinking about and iterating and designing within our studio.
I'll say the other thing about exterior material is at all times we're trying to be sensitive about the maintenance requirements, especially up in the mountains where the U value is, just blasting the material. So this is reclaimed barnwood and metal, just trying to make our clients' lives a little bit easier,
And again, really designing these outdoor spaces like they are outdoor living rooms. And it's something that we really enjoy doing. And you can see the vertical challenge with this property and how we integrated it into the landscape. Ridge House is another remodel project. About 60% of our work is remodel. It's something that we've been passionate about from the beginning of our practice. We actually think it's one of the more sustainable things you can do is take something that already has a lot of embodied energy and make it better and make it viable for today's and future use. So that is something that I think also speaks to our historic preservation work. And it's something that, again, we're very passionate about. So when a client comes to us with a project that they want to do something with, our first instinct is to try to remodel it and see what we can do around that. So that's been a big ethos to our work. This is an interesting project. It was originally designed by Ellie Brickham, who was Aspen's first woman architect, and then Stein Eriksen owned it, the famous skier. So our clients purchased it. And so we started really dissecting it and getting it back down to some principles that had been marred over the years. And one of this was a very clear axial way of distributing the floor plan. There is a 120-foot long corridor that becomes the organizing feature of the home, that then the rooms come off of that as you go through the house. But there are multiple ways to flow through the house, which again leads back to a porosity in our work, which gets back to even the house I grew up in, which always had multiple ways to get in and out of every room. And it's a really important principle to try not to be creating dead ends and really have that flow. It's not only a physical flow, but it's an energetic flow as well. Really, again, beautiful, expansive views, trying to bring in balanced light, and then how do we, on the exterior, we do a lot with brise soleils, and we're doing a lot of analysis of sun, and how do we bring in the winter sun and block out the summer sun. So that's something that's super important. In this, you'll see a lot of big pocketing, sliding glass doors. We love that. We love it when walls can just go away. And again, we're so lucky to live in a climate that doesn't have a ton of insects, so we can do that. And so we've employed that here in this project here as a way to get out from the living room and into the landscape. The other reason why we remodeled this house is there were 4 existing wood-burning fireplaces, which you're not allowed to build anymore, for air quality reasons. And so we wanted to retain these fireplaces, and so you'll see how we brought these fireplaces to life in this project. And again, you can see how we are bringing views and access through to from rooms to room.
One more comment about our remodel work is a lot of times clients come to us and they're like, hey, let's scrape and replace, build new. That's a lot easier for us. But we are often looking at really fine architecture that just needs to be scrubbed and pull out the scalpel and take off non-important additions that have happened over the time. And to us, that's the highest level of sustainability, is to reuse and repurpose.
We were able to reuse the glue lamp beams that were originally in this house, so that's what you see here. And then we were able to bring in, we really think of the ceiling as the 5th wall on our projects, so we're really careful about what we're doing with those ceilings. And so we were able to kind of do a nod to some more European detailing with how we designed the ceiling in this house. And then it's fun to get up high. It's fun to get on the roof. So in this project, we brought in a roof deck and a spiral stair into the architecture so that you could get up and get 360-degree mountain views. And these are some images of the outside. So it's a really interesting house where on one side we came up with a storyline where there's these existing stone plinths, and then you go through them, and then you enter into this very glass, very open facade that then goes to the mountains beyond. And you can see the original front door we reused as the door going into the main bedroom. So that was the front door when Stein Eriksen had the house. And And then you can see the last 2 fireplaces. One is even in the main bathroom. So super, super fun to be able to use those. On the same property was a relic. We call it the barn studio. And this is a trip. This is a crazy structure that was on the property, and we remodeled it. When the family first bought the property, we remodeled this barn studio so that they could live here while they were coming. They were living in Europe at the time, so they could come and they could live here while the other project was going on. We took some walls, we added plaster, we redid fireplace surrounds. And you even designed a table where you can have drawers that pull out, where there can be art supplies. I think it's something we make furniture on every project because often it's hard to find the right thing. So it's something that we're constantly thinking about and making sure that the proportion and the scale and the use is appropriate, and we make it when we can't find it. These are the views beyond that you can see. So it's really this folly, this crazy place that is in the landscape. And with a downstairs area, again, with more fireplaces, which we went dark with the finishes down here. The barn wood was already there, and really took this folly and made something really fun for the family out of it.
Okay, the next project is Art Barn. And Art Barn was on the heels of a remodel that we did for the same client right next door. And they, after we finished that interior remodel for that client, he's like, I'm thinking about buying the neighbor's house and I want to build an art barn. And I was like, okay, what's an art barn? You know, my mind's, is it industrial? Is it like, dirt floors? What do you mean, barn? So as the iteration evolved, it became a very almost high-tech, very curated kind of interior. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But the biggest challenges on this project is it was another sloping site. There's nothing flat in Aspen these days. And there's this gorgeous meadow on the other side, on the north side of the house, that was part of the historic ranch of this neighborhood. And so the whole idea is like, how do we take this meadow and run it through the architecture and pull it through the house down the slope? And you can see in this section, the uphill side, it feels like a one-story house, but then on the downside, it opens up. The primary materials are black corrugated steel roof, Suzuki Bond, which I think many people are familiar with that now, burned cedar siding, and then concrete. And that concrete you'll see on the back facade, but it also appears on the interior too. It's beautiful concrete work. The client is probably the world's largest collector of video art. So beyond art that's on the wall, sculpture, there's 2 video art galleries in this room, in this house. And he's currently right now under construction in his own museum in the Lower East Side of New York, and that should be done in a couple of years. And it's going to be an amazing museum. It's going to be unique because I think it opens at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's open till 11 o'clock at night. They have dinner services, so it's a completely different experience. So all video. Working with this artist, this is a Sol LeWitt painting that he purchased from Mass Mocha. And then had a group from the Yale University come out and install it over a course of 2 weeks. And that was super interesting. We worked with Atelier AM for the interior design, and Michael Mazinski is Architectural 100 designer in the country. Yeah, it's just a beautiful home. He has a big extended family. They constantly having guests. They're always hosting artists, opera singers, musicians. So they need this place where they can be, where they can gather. In the living room, you can seat 100 people for dinner. You can have concerts. The acoustics are great. You can have, they're massive philanthropic efforts going on all the time. So this house is regularly being used and being resided in.
So you can see how we merge the private spaces with the more public spaces, floor-to-ceiling glass to really, again, bring in nature into the home, and one thing that we really love about this project, it almost harkens back if you guys have been to like Barragan's house down in Mexico City, the use of corner windows. So the light just floods the perpendicular wall coming in that you can really see here in this image, and it's amazing. This client has grew up a portion of her youth in Japan, and as a tea master is studying to be a tea master. That's a lifelong pursuit, and so we were able to build an authentic Japanese tea room in this house, and we've gone there for tea ceremonies.
And we
it's
consulted
really
with tea masters. Like there's such a thing. These gentlemen helped us understand like the detailing, how proportions, everything was brought in from Japan. And you'll see this Japanese garden on the outside. Several of those large stones came from Kyoto.
And this is right outside the tea room, which is a really special spot.
Okay, the next project is Bagwell, and Bagwell is actually on a flat property. And imagine that. It's probably the only property like that, and it's all a one-story house. And there's one bedroom downstairs for guests. There's a media room, but most of the program is on this level. And I think if I was going to pick any of the houses, I'd love this house the most. It's just easy living. This client was really into feng shui and really supported their beliefs about well-being and being connected to the earth. So we really followed those philosophies and created a courtyard for the main entry. And that courtyard serves also not only as this beautiful passage and moment to go to the front door, but they use it for entertaining. So that's kind of like the pre-party before you come to the house. Sometimes they set up a little bar, champagne table. Another important thing about this house is just the connection to the outside. So as you're passing through this courtyard, it's lined with glass on both sides. And the one on the left is connecting the garage, the mudroom, the kitchen, that constant passage. So you have that indoor-outdoor connection to the courtyard. And on the other side is another glass wall, and that's where all the kids' rooms are. So you constantly see each other moving around the house. It's really beautiful. Great outdoor seating, sunsets, views of Buttermilk ski area. We collaborated with
Terry Ritchie
for the interior design out of Connecticut. She was awesome to work with. This client became a massive art collector and started collecting some of the most blue chip art. It's amazing to see.
She also is from the South, and so that it was something that was really important, a sensibility that she wanted to bring into the interiors. So you can see even bringing in a hutch, for instance, into the kitchen. These sensibilities to her upbringing was something that we brought into the interior architecture of the project. And the steel of the windows with the mullions is something that also harkens back to kind of a more traditional architecture, but it's done in a contemporary way.
Another thing we're starting to do in all of our projects is like having a little breakout area for the guest bedrooms. So there's a little relief, the kids all gather here and they have little kid meetings about mom and dad probably. But we're starting to create these special spots where guests or family can gather outside of the main living room. This is a shot of the lap pool, and in the distance is their gym, and the gym doubles as a Bikram yoga studio. So in 5 minutes, it could be perfect temperature for hot yoga.
So really, really beautiful. Creek House is an amazing project that we did for an extended family. So part of our process with this house is there's a 30-member family of 3 generations. And so we created a mission statement, and they wanted the 2 sisters that were very involved in the main point of contact on the project wanted input from everyone. So we created a mission statement and we sent out a deck to everyone, and everyone gave input onto what they want and and the mission was what is going to strengthen our family? How is this property going to strengthen our family? So it was really amazing to see the responses that came back and what resulted from that. They have other adjacent properties, and so this is the 3rd property of some adjacent houses that they've been enjoying for years. So the idea with Creek House is we found a stone building. We've created all of this. We found a stone building, which is the garage. Then there was a more recent farmhouse addition, and then we linked it with a glass link that is also our vertical circulation and our elevator. It is right on a creek, so obviously there's floodplains that we needed to be respectful of and work with, but we really wanted to have a relationship back to the creek. So we did that through window placement and through a wraparound porch. Lots of areas to sit. We really wanted there to be able to have areas for everybody, not only in the living room, but in various parts of the house. And one of the hallmarks of the project is that we have a dining table that has the ability to expand that all 30 family members can sit at and have a meal together. So that was something that took some planning. But it was something that was really important for the program and how we laid out the house. And huge connection back to the landscape from every room, and really a feeling like you're in nature. And that was, again, super important to the overall design. The glass link, again, is where the vertical circulation happens in the house. And we had some fun with the elevator, and we really wanted there to be, again, this like visual view of it. So we came up with a perforated metal elevator, and you can see the elevator cab past that perforated metal. And we had materials going inside and out, which was really amazing. This is a remodel project that we completed for a young family, which is right on the slopes of Aspen Highlands Mountain. This was a house that was built in the 90s, and I think it goes back to our philosophy of remodel. How do we make this better? How do we open up some walls? How do we do some editing to this architecture to make it better, but so that it continues to live on and all that embodied energy that's in the project is retained. So we really looked at how we could get back to the mountain, get back to nature that's surrounding this house with a few simple moves, and it had a huge effect. One of those is we looked at, there was a lot of mullions on the house, so we replaced window sashes with windows that don't have mullions. We did sliding doors instead of French doors. Added some windows into rooms that didn't have them. So again, there can really be this connection back to nature. We looked at how we were designing stairs and how, again, we could bring in a more transparent material to that. There's 2 sets of stairs in this house, and how we can, again, really create family spaces that feel light-filled in a kind of heavier mountain architecture. Was something that was incredibly important. We did all the interiors of this house as well. This is another table that we designed and custom made for the family, which is right off of the kitchen. The kitchen had a room next to it that was on a different level. We ripped the wall down and we pulled that space up and now created this lounge space adjacent to the kitchen, which is another thing that we're doing a lot of. I think, the heart of the home is the kitchen. And so how do we create a hangout space next to the kitchen so maybe whoever is cooking, there's more community around that. So that's something that we're doing a lot in our projects, and people are really enjoying it. And then bringing in some fun. We wanted some color, so you can see that with our bookshelf design and how we can really, create that opportunity in the design. The stair used to have a solid wall around it, so we really studied the structure to see how we could open it up. So again, we can really create a connection between the levels and have light going through, which is really beautiful.
I think one of my favorite things about this house, kind of like the last house where we wanted input from all family members, no matter what age. The daughter was 8 or 9 at the time and super precocious. She had her own list of program that she needed, and so we had separate meetings with her and separate meetings with the parents.
She's pretty great.
So that's kind of a hallmark of inclusivity that we like in our design. It makes it richer and more fulfilling.
When we started this project, the year before, we had done a pretty extensive trip to Japan, and so that was something that was also in the back of our mind when we were thinking about the design of this project. And so bringing in some of those sensibilities into the design was something that was a heavy influence to us. In thinking about this project. The whole main suite, we again edited it back. We really studied the existing structure. We got rid of superfluous things and we brought it back to the essence of what was happening in the space. We do a lot of bunk rooms. Again, we do a lot of multi-generational projects. So really, how do we have everyone excited to be there, and really how do we bed a lot of people? So it's super fun. And there was a lot of spaces in this house. So this was an area where we could do some fun climbing walls and have some out of the ordinary program uses.
There's an adventure room also. With,
yeah.
Not the mud room, but adventure room.
Yeah.
They're a fun family. All right, this next house is called Game On, and this is our personal residence that we designed for ourselves. This is a ground up project. For those of you who might be familiar with Aspen, this is in the historic West End, very traditional lots, right across from the music festival tent. So this was an empty lot. It might be hard to see for some of you guys, but this used to be a double lot. And on that double lot was the historic house from the 1880s, Victorian. And before we were ever involved with this, developer purchased, obviously the lot, did a lot split, created two lots, put the old historic house on a new foundation on its own dedicated lot, and then created a vacant lot. And it was probably on the market for 7 years. And there's probably a lot of challenges, the reason why it was on the market for 7 years. And we took a look at it. Actually, one of our very, very best friends subsequently bought that Victorian after it had been moved, and he encouraged us pretty heavily to take this seriously. So not only is this a historic property next to a historic house, so we had to go through Historic Preservation Commission meetings and very intensive review of our design and how we're relating to the Victorian house, yet allowing the house to be modern and subdued and on its own of today. Additionally, the other big challenge was at the time, rainwater and stormwater coming off your property has to remain on the property, and that the code keeps changing back and forth. But when we were caught up in this project, you could not do dry wells, buried dry wells anymore. So you had to deal with it on your property. So we created a sunken bocce ball court. It's literally 7 feet of sand, silt, fibers, filters. Every little ounce of water that drops on our property on the roof finds its way into this before it goes to the aquifer. This is a view from our living room, which is very modest in size, but it really expands in the summertime as the sliding glass windows pocket into the architecture for that indoor-outdoor.
This was our first project where we did this covered outdoor living, and we took some of the allowable floor area, because it counts, away from the inside to create this covered outdoor area. And it's something that you now see in a lot of our projects. So we like to experiment on ourselves. I think we've done a dozen projects where we're just constantly, starting. When we first started our firm, we were doing condo work. We would do a condo, we would work from there, and then we'd buy another condo, sell that, and try different design moves. So this was the first time we had done that outdoor living space.
Yeah. Another inspiration was at the time, harkening back to the Japan trip, we were also doing a project on Cape Cod. So we're heavily influenced by the simple structures, white clad, shiplap siding, but also Japan. Like Japan was I can't wait to go back. Just the influence of the use of concrete and detailing. We get a
very edited. That was our first trip to Japan when we started designing this house. So it was something that was in the back of our mind as well. A narrow lot, as you can see, kind of a narrow, long lot, but how we could really capitalize. And what's great is this is a LEED Gold house, so we were also able to bring in the sustainable practices from our firm and bring it into this project and really experiment things, but go through the full certification process with this project.
Another hallmark of if you go back, there's no hallways, there's no circulation, there's no like wasted space. This is 3,300 square feet on 3 levels, so 1,100 square feet on each level. And if there's one area that can be considered a hallway, it's at the top of the landing, stair landing, and it's probably 7 feet. But everything just flows naturally and is connected to the outside, and it's really nice use of space.
Super efficient. Well, great. Well, thank you to our team, to our collaborators, to our clients for the trust that they put into us with all of our projects. And thank you everyone for being here. And thank you Doors Open Denver for the opportunity to present our projects and our book. And thank you, Matter, for being here to sell some of the books. And we're here for any questions.
And by the way, we did not regurgitate what's in the book as far as the writing. Our writer is so elegant, and it's worth reading. It's not just a fun picture.
We spent a lot of time with the writer, so it was great. Thank you.
It's our turn to thank you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank
you. To your point, John, that was a very rare exposure to their work, but particularly your ways in your own words. So thank you so much for sharing so much candidly. And we have time for questions.
John, what brought you from Cincinnati to Colorado?
That's a good question. I was, previous to University of Colorado, I was at Miami of Ohio. I studied lots of different aspects of business, and I was like challenged by like going just into business. I was like, what kind of business? I was like, I reflected back on what I was, I was like architecture appreciation. I love that class. I love my sculpture class, all those electives. So I did a little research on the University of Colorado, and it's slightly modeled off of the GSE program at Harvard, where it's all-encompassing design, not just like you're going to learn how to be an architect. It's more inclusive. So I packed up and moved, and my parents didn't think it was serious, and we'll see you next month. And Colorado is home now.
And you came back with a wife and a career. So
I know.
That'll show your parents.
Winning.
I have a question because I've never been in your residential spaces, but I've been in your hospitality, several projects. Today was all about residential work. Could you talk to us about the difference between a commercial or hospitality client and a residential client, and how maybe you have to modify your own approach?
Yeah, they inform each other. And so often what happens in our hospitality work is a client will stay there and then they're like, oh my gosh, we love it and we want to live like we're on vacation, right? So what we're bringing into our hospitality work is really principles of how to live privately. So they inform each other, and same thing in the homes, right? So a lot of people are so active these days and moving around, and so a lot of the things and a lot of the program that goes into our hospitality projects we're bringing into our homes, such as even like just packing on the fly and having areas to do that, just thinking about the private spaces and how they're set up. So often when we're meeting with clients, we are talking about where they've traveled, hotels they've stayed in, what are details from those experiences that they want to bring into the way they're living privately. And so I think it's really neat to be able to do both because they merge together so much. And I think the best hotels, at least for us, are the ones that have a very residential feel to it, and it really feels like it's a unique experience. And so that's when we work with bigger brands like Marriott, it's like we did the W Hotel in Aspen. That's something that we're trying to always bring into those projects and really be site specific to those projects. We just finished a hotel in Jackson Hole, a 40-key hotel, and it really is a large home. And so I think our client found us on the internet, and I think that's what really drew them to us, is that we do both. And that's a fairly unique thing. You have to work to do both. Life is trying to put you into categories, right? And trying to push you into a commodity at all times. And so we work really hard to offer all things. And that comes with challenges and also opportunities. So it's a very deliberate choice.
Fun fact about that hotel, like the #1 requirement from the client is that you have to smell the baked goods coming out of the kitchen, the cookies and the breads, and it needs to be filtering and wafting out through the whole hotel. So you walk in, you're like, you feel.
But that project we did geothermal, like we're really trying to bring in sustainable aspects into every project. And I think that's our duty and our obligation, and a lot of times when we're working with clients, we have huge fiduciary responsibility. We feel that we're not just spending people's money, but it's our job to introduce things to clients and show them the way and to lead them to something. And we are very fortunate. We made a choice multiple years ago that we want clients that mentor us as much as we mentor them, and that just going into any relationship with that mindset, with that reciprocal thinking, really elevates the whole conversation. And so it evens the playing ground. And so it's our job to be introducing things to the client that they don't know about. And so that is where a lot of our leadership and professional development is focused on within our firm and within our team.
And we wouldn't be standing up here without our team. These guys are partners. We have 8 partners, and these guys are in the thick and thin, and it's amazing to go design with you guys and jam.
You all mentioned the Cape as well as Jackson. How many projects are in Aspen versus other markets, whether in Colorado or outside at this point?
Yeah, so we work nationally. So we have projects. We just completed a couple projects also in Washington State. We have some projects going in California, Florida. So we work in different areas. But I would say 80% of our work is in Colorado. But we are actively, working to expand that. And I think Colorado, we have a lot of colleagues. We're hyper involved with one of our American Institutes of Architects. I was the Colorado AIA president. I'm the Colorado National Council representative, so I'm with colleagues from all over. And I think we have such a unique way of looking at design, and I think it's our time to really bring that out, because I think if you look at the coast, it can look similar. And so I think just our way of living, and there's so many people that have an aspiration of being in Colorado. It's kind of their dream, and we get to live people's dreams, which is like something we don't take lightly. Every day I'm so appreciative to live in this great state.
Well, we're actively doing a design right now for a client in Philadelphia.
Yep.
For that same reason, they're like, we don't want an East Coast architect. We want the sensibilities of Colorado and that indoor-outdoor.
A lot of these principles that you're seeing in our work is something that we're taking into other markets.
Well, and then you mentioned that you all have the full range of services with interior design, but that you also have, needed to collaborate with interior designers on other projects. Like, how does that process change when you kind of have the end-to-end experience versus like the collaboration with other teams that you may or may not have worked with?
Yeah, I mean, we call it jamming with other band members. Like sometimes it's fun to we're a jam band, so it's fun to do that, and especially when they're elevating you. We're going to elevate everyone we're working with, and I say that humbly. Like, you work with us, we're rigorous, we're thinking, we're going to be pushing you, and so all we ask is that someone's pushing us back.
And likewise, we want those guys to push us back. We want the landscape architect to push it. It's richer and better when we're all pushing the project together.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fun. I mean, you have to take a minute to learn each other's process, but hopefully the result, that's why people are bringing in other collaborators, is an even more elevated outcome.
I have to imagine a project like your own requires a little bit more attention to proportionality than maybe an outside designer, who doesn't know the historic Colorado neighborhoods. Right.
Yeah, I think we're in a unique, we're also unique that we're an architecture firm that does interior design, and that is not, again, life is trying to specialize you, especially these days, right? So we try to be generalists, and it's like, that's not what the forces are trying to do to you. And so we can offer that, and many of our clients, they are running big corporations, they are maybe running big families, and they like that. They like one point of contact. They don't want to be dealing with a lot of people. So those kind of clients, we are perfect, right? Because we can be one-stop shopping. And we, going back to our convergent way of thinking, in those projects, we're designing all the dishes, we're designing the glassware, we are doing everything. We're designing all the bedding, and that's something that is really fun and really rewarding to like, it's almost like Eero Saarinen, what he did down at the Air Force Academy, you know, where he designed the silverware in the cafeteria, and that is like the ultimate dream of a project for us, and we are so fortunate to be able to do that. But we also like collaborating with other people. It's good. It's good to have variety.
I have one last question. You've done so many types of dwellings and buildings, and we saw that spectacular yoga studio also that you had to solve. Is there a type of project you haven't, is there something you haven't done that you're actually dying to find a client who wants?
Oh. A full resort.
Oh, okay.
That would be a dream. Or in a museum.
Or a museum.
Yeah, we recently collaborated on the Beyer Museum in Aspen, so when you're there, please go. It's an amazing, amazing museum, but I think at a larger scale. We are personally very drawn to art, and we're inspired by it, and so being able to interface and do larger scale stuff, or I would, doing, like we recently just went to Mass MoCA, and if you guys haven't been, totally recommend it. In Western Massachusetts, it's kind of a haul, but just taking that old textile factory and renovating that and making it into a place for art, or going to Marfa, going to Nashima, and we love going to these large scale. We were just in Milan last weekend, and we went to the Pirelli hangar Bacocca, which is an old kind of airplane factory that, there's Antle, the Kiefer, just like huge scale art is like so awe-inspiring for us. So that's something that would be amazing to be able to do something like that. Yeah. I know. Keep us in mind.
Thank you so much. And we do, some of you I know bought books before the presentation, so Sarah and John are happy to personalize them for you.
Yeah.
And if you didn't buy a book, we have them available.
And come by whenever. We're on 18th and Blake. Our doors are open, so come in.
500 Main Street in Aspen.
Yep. Yes, their doors are open 360.
Come in and have a cappuccino, and we'll give you a tour.
It's fun. We do a lot of virtual reality. It's amazing. And if you guys have never been in those goggles, it's a really awesome experience. Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.